Inside your radio, COVID is abating, but I urge you to keep up your guard. This is Talk of the Bay, KSQD 90.7 and KSQD.org. I'm Chris Krohn of the Santa Cruz Political Report, and today's show is a follow-up on our January 14th program covering the trials, the travails of some of this community's most vulnerable. The plight of our unsheltered population will be covered from a range of viewpoints today. It's a show we're calling Housing, Homelessness, and the Right of the Unsheltered to Sleep. This is Talk of the Bay, KSQD. I'm Chris Krohn, and we'll return in a Santa Cruz second. We're back. This is KSQD 90.7 Santa Cruz. This is Talk of the Bay, and I'm your host, Chris Krohn of the Santa Cruz Political Report, which can be read each week on Bratton Online. That's brattononline.com. Okay, let me set the stage here for today's show, which we're calling Homelessness and the Right of the Unsheltered to Sleep. Years from now, when Santa Cruz history is closely examined, historians will note the economic mayhem of this era as possibly mirroring the nationwide wealth gap trend. They will even analyze this period as a kind of 2020's COVID Gilded Age. This widening gap between rich and poor is surely a social train wreck, or a series of train wrecks. The station it now occupies might be called Obscene Rift, in which 21st century capitalism is delivering to the rich and shafting the poor. When the U.S. this is a period when the U.S. is experiencing its highest unemployment rate ever, and likely its largest homeless population. But statistics tend to be skewed. Estimates of homelessness in the United States range from fewer than 600,000 to more than 1.5 million. The higher numbers may include homeless students and people living with friends and family, while lower number is derived from the federal government's Housing and Urban Development Department. It's their flawed point-in-time or pit count study. They do a yearly count. Not at all scientific, and even HUD itself, quote, cautions against drawing conclusions to those trends from its pit counts. If the larger number is to be believed, we now have the largest homeless population in history, pushing shopping carts filled with meager belongings from one sidewalk destination to another. The war on the homeless is nothing like LBJ's war on poverty in the 1960s. That war had a goal: put an end to poverty. The war on the local homeless people in Santa Cruz, who now dot the cityscape, is called TOLO, or the Outdoor Living Ordinance. It is a war directed by some well-off people looking for a way to escape the omen of the miner's canary. The houseless have now become such a disquieting tone for those searching for the beach enclave and that perfect second or third home. Homeless people are the human sentinels of the outrageous upsurge in capitalist accumulation for the few. But wait, there's a ray of hope. Our court system. There's a camp that's been set up in San Lorenzo Park. It grew to over 300 at one point, and when the city ordered its closure, the homeless and dozens of local supporters fought back and went to court on December 30th. And won an injunction. The federal magistrate ordered the city to let the campers stay in San Lorenzo Park on 2, and today was 3 separate occasions. When they were back in court today, and we will get an up-to-the-minute report on what happened in court, it makes 3 times, and that might be 3 strikes against our local city manager's office. Now let's get to an all-star cast of interested parties whose accumulated experience on the issues surrounding the houseless and housing would likely be over 50 years. Brent Adams is founder and director of the Warming Center and Footbridge Homeless Services Center, which has established several new agreement camps, as he calls them. Brent is chair of the Santa Cruz Coalition on Homelessness, which has been advocating for transitional encampment communities, and we'll get into that as well. Hello, Brent.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me. Sorry about the phone line. Hope it's okay.
No worries. Abby Samuels is a vocal and engaged Santa Cruz activist who advocates passionately for our marginalized population. She slept outside City Hall every Tuesday night for 2 years, protesting the sleeping ban that criminalized those experiencing homelessness. Samuels is on the board of the Santa Cruz chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union. She's an organizer for the immigrants' right group, YAR, Your Allied Rapid Response, and she participates in several other activist groups, including Stop the Sweeps, Santa Cruz Cop Watch, and the Democratic Socialists of America. She also works full-time as a software developer. Abby Samuels, do you ever have any time to do anything else?
I wish I did. Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you. Cooper D'Angelo is a former emergency room nurse and officer within the Santa Cruz Homeless Union, and Cooper D'Angelo is a current resident of San Lorenzo Park Encampment. Thanks for being on the show, Cooper. Are you with us?
Thank you, Chris.
Hello. Keith McHenry is a writer and co-founder of the global movement Food Not Bombs, and he is also on the executive board of the National Union for the Homeless. Welcome, Keith McHenry.
Thank you for having us. Great.
Joy Schendeldecker is an artist and a community organizer who lives in Santa Cruz. She's an active member of the Santa Cruz chapter of the Democratic Socialists of America. She works on 2 of their subcommittees, the Eco-Socialist Working Group and the Love Boat. The Love Boat recently initiated the formation of the mutual aid group Sanitation for the People. Welcome, Joy.
Hi, Chris. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, let's get into it. First question goes to Cooper D'Angelo, resident of the the San Lorenzo camp. Cooper, how safe do you feel sleeping at the camp right now?
Ask that again.
How safe do you feel sleeping at the camp in San Lorenzo Park?
Oh, it's safe. It's definitely safe. It may be the safest place to be. I've actually been there the whole duration since we began.
Is that over a year, or how long is that?
Last year. I know it's probably since July of last year, 2020.
How many residents would you estimate are there?
Oh, maybe 150 that are actually, they're between the top and the bottom, the riverbed area. So if you counted all the tents in the San Lorenzo Park on top and then the riverbed, there's probably about 120 to 150.
Thank you. And what, in the press, the popular press is reporting the camp being rife with drugs and violence and garbage. What's your experience being a resident of that camp?
Right. Well, I have really great things to say about everybody coming and pulling together, under such crisis time. We even had the city actually take our garbage collection away, and we are responsible for our own garbage collection. And, that's when the county put up some dumpsters. But for the most part, what I see is a lot of people healing because they finally have, a little bit of shelter and some continuity of their day where they can rest and they can eat. And so their nutrition's coming back. And so that's what I see is a lot of healing going on.
Real important stuff. Continuity. We're going to get back to that. Abby Samuels, you've been at this a long time. How significant is the court's now 3 decisions that allow people to sleep in the park since there are no other places? And has that ever happened before?
Well, thanks to Anthony Prince for doing this TRO, temporary restraining order. It's only during COVID, unfortunately. I wish it was longer. So I think it's been excellent because now the service providers can find people if they need to get a hold of someone, they know where to find them. If people are getting shots, they know where to find them. There's a lot. I think people's health, like Cooper has said, has a lot of people finally are getting their health together. People are working together there. It's more of a community. it's really awesome. So I'm gonna really be sad when when and if it ends.
Well, that depends if people come together like they came together to claim that space. Brent Adams, you are running the Warming Center and have at least a 2-decade-long record of assisting various homeless and houseless populations. Is San Lorenzo Park the right place for a homeless camp, or the benchlands for that matter?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, I got to take issue a little bit with there are dozen encampment areas. We have hundreds and hundreds of people out there. This hotbed we see, because one, it's at Highway 1, Highway 9, it gets a lot of attention. Because of this, the Battle of the Duck Pond and this Korhn Junction, we see a lot of energy here. But this should not be seen as the state of homelessness. And also these people, and I would posit seemingly inappropriately that Cooper and none of these activists represent this encampment. It is not safe. It's anything but safe. I know because I have hundreds of people who use my storage program daily, showers, laundry. They get blankets from us. And I'm in the camp every single day. And these spaces, while we can lift them up but this is the lowest common denominator. Why are we talking about these spaces where we've abandoned people to as the great thing that we need to defend? We need to reframe the problem. We're a city of intelligence and creative thinkers, and this protest tendency always drives us to the bottom, lowest common denominator, where we have to defend something that actually is. If you don't have a code of behavior, code of agreements, you'll have the most aggressive, coercive drug dealers running the space, and that's what we have. And I can't believe that I'm the one to be over here on the far extreme offering a counterpoint to this space. But to answer your question more specifically, definitely a city park that's adjacent to a downtown business area, across from an elderly folks' home that is a cross-section of lots of people, lawn bowling, a child's play area. Definitely not an appropriate place for such a camp. And to defend that as this is the last stand, what we do is, as protest tendency activists, use poster child elements like this as a way to, further our attack on the state, on the city, on capitalism, on the police department, and we use the homeless people there to do it. Most of these activists were never in that space besides Cooper until the sign was posted. We need to do better for those people that we say we care about and build programs and hold a better vision moving forward.
Okay, thank you, Brent Adams. I appreciate that. I'm going to go to Cooper in a second, but I want to hear from Joy Schendeldecker. Joy, I saw you there at the camp recently, and Mr. Adams, Brent Adams, said if it's anything but safe, it's not safe in that camp. I'm in the camp every day. What's your experience from being in that camp? We're talking about San Lorenzo camp.
Right. Because I spend so much more time at Highway 1 and 9, I can't speak to, the day-to-day status of safety in the park as much as other people. I would defer to Cooper's feelings about this.
Okay, let's go to Cooper then, and I will come right back to you because I want to get a report on the 1 and 9 camp as well. Cooper, Brent Adams said it's anything but safe in that camp. Any thoughts on that?
I'm not sure what you're asking. I mean, we
He's saying it's not safe, and you just said it was safe.
I'd say we have definite warriors, and like God's army, definitely. So we have a lot of people who are God's army, and other than that, I mean, they're our protection. They're not here to hurt anybody. I'm going to
go back to Joy Schendeldecker then. Joy, you've spent a lot of time at the 1 and 9 camp, which probably rivals in terms of numbers of homeless people. If there's 120 to 150, I'd say there's well over 100 tents on either side of the freeway. What's your experience?
Yeah. I think at the height of it, we estimated around 130 people. A few people have left already because there's been this impending displacement that's been kind of pushed back week after week. I feel very safe there. I've always felt safe. I've never had a negative interaction with a resident there. And in fact, I'm continuously impressed with how open and welcoming and kind people are to me coming into their space. So I feel like one of the greatest things I've taken away from my engagement there has been a feeling of mutual respect and kindness and community and caretaking, really.
Can you say quickly what the Love Boat is and how it's connected with the Democratic Socialists of America Santa Cruz chapter?
Right. Love Boat is officially the mutual aid working group of DSA Santa Cruz. And it's a group of people who have been doing outreach for more than 3 years now in Santa Cruz to different camps that have been in different locations. Most recently at Highway 1 and 9, there's a lot of people are members that provide backup support. There are probably, 15 people who regularly go out on Sunday mornings. We pack lunches, we get hygiene, we get survival gear like tents and sleeping bags and, really what people ask for. And the mutual aid part of it is that it's not charity, it's solidarity. It's a two-way street where we get as much as the people that we're engaging with. We're not better than anybody. So I think it's been a positive experience in both ways.
Okay, let me go to maybe the Mr. Solidarity. It's not charity, it's solidarity. Keith McHenry of Food Not Bombs. Are the benchlands the right place for homeless people to be sleeping? And how safe have you found the camp or not? I saw you there the other day.
Yeah, I'm there almost every day, and I've never had any problems at all. And I've been in and out of even some of the, the deepest parts of the camp that people probably don't even know or have doors to tents and so on. So no, it's just like any part of the United States. It's in fact, it's Santa Cruz, so it's safer than most places because it's Santa Cruz. It's nothing like like hanging out in camps in San Francisco, and I did that for a long time.
How significant is for you that people are actually sleeping in San Lorenzo Park and are about to be moved to the benchlands according to this court order today, but the fact that the city has been forced to allow people to sleep? What does this mean? You've been at this for 30, 40 years?
40 years, and this is actually landmark that we were able to stop the eviction first by community effort, getting out there and blocking the police from the evictions on the 28th of December, and then giving us enough time to get into court to get a temporary restraining order. That's now an injunction that is actually at least going to be going till the 26th of April when we have our next court hearing. Now, there's some upsides and downsides to, if you're concerned about the CDC's position on moving camps, even though it's only moving it down to the benchlands from up on San Lorenzo, on the higher ground at San Lorenzo Park, it logistically makes some sense because it will be further away from the senior housing, and it'll be, there'll be some advantages to that, but it's probably not wise to actually move everybody if COVID is an issue that you're worried about, and that's what the case is mostly around.
Have you spent any time
on it was a good compromise.
Keith McHenry of Food Not Bombs, have you spent any time in the 1 and 9 camp? Could you corroborate or not what we just heard from Joy about that?
Well, I haven't been in it more in the recent months, but it's been similar to that. Even sometimes some people, it's I would not want to sleep there, but the people, you've got to have a place to sleep, And I think that the TOLO, which is coming up for a vote, you go on Mission Street and imagine
the city's outdoor living ordinance.
Semi trucks, the temporary outdoor living ordinance, and so to live by cars and trucks and stuff going by all night long must be somewhat miserable. But it's understandable. The sad thing is that there is not a lot of safe places for people to live in. We're probably going to I would expect roughly between 50 to 100 additional unhoused people joining the streets each month, maybe more. Right now, there The eviction project at Princeton University says that there's 8 million people facing eviction this April, and they think that the eviction moratorium by Biden will probably keep 1 million people from becoming homeless. But that still leaves a lot of people that are likely to be homeless, and we are seeing that here at Food Not Bombs every day.
Okay, I'm going to go. I'm going to go
newly unhoused people.
I'm going to go to housing activist, homeless activist Abby Samuels next. I just have to say, this is KSQD 90.7. My name is Chris Crone, and this is Talk of the Bay. Abby Samuels, could you respond first to the safety of the camp, because I know you've been spending some time there, and also, where does this battle go from here? Do you understand what I understand, that they're going to move the camp now from the San Lorenzo Park down to the benchlands closer to the river?
Yeah, I can answer both of those, Chris. So first of all, Brent is incorrect. I've slept at, Cooper can attest to this. I slept next to Cooper's tent. I brought my own tent, slept there 2 nights in a row. And then I came back and slept another time in a different area. So I've slept at San Lorenzo Park way before the TRO, months before, because of the sprinklers that were going on. And I wanted to see what time the sprinklers were going on. And they were going off 2 times a night. And in fact, Cooper, I slept through. It was so nice and quiet. I slept through one of the sprinklers and I hear this voice, Abby, the sprinklers are up. Are on. So I went and took pictures, went through the park and took pictures. So that was one of my experiences. So I would feel very safe living there. I would not want that on anyone. I'd rather have everyone in shelter. But that's not possible. Or it is possible, but the city doesn't want to do anything about that.
Let me interrupt you there, Abby Samuels. Yeah. Let me just say, we're having a hard time getting Anthony Prince on the phone. So he is actually calling our cell phone here, and he only has a minute or two. I was hoping to let's get him into the conversation. He's the lawyer who is representing the California Homeless Union, and it just happened to be in court today defending the campers in San Lorenzo Park. Welcome, Anthony Prince.
Hi, Chris. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect. Can you give us an update on the legal maneuvering that took place today and whether today was a court victory, or did you see it as a setback?
No. There's no question about what took place in today's status conference was yet another successful move on behalf of the Homeless Union and those encamped in San Lorenzo Park. As you know, the city had initiated phase 1 of an operation to completely break up the encampment without any regard to where anyone went, without any regard to any alternative housing in the middle of the worst of the pandemic. And of course, we were able to convince the court to stop that dead in its tracks. And since then, we've been able to continue to work with the city, which had to back down. And the city proposed its own compromise plan, they called it. And instead of breaking up the encampment altogether and dispersing our clients and dispersing the union members and homeless throughout the city, they had to agree to permit camping in the benchlands. So it was an arrangement that's certainly preferable to simply breaking up the camp. As recently as their last filing, they still were trying to get the judge to simply dissolve the preliminary injunction. And we were able to succeed in persuading the court not to do that. And we're now working on the details. The court did take into consideration both sides and did issue, or she will shortly issue, an order such that the encampment will be moved over to the benchlands and will remain in the benchlands until she determines that it's appropriate to dissolve the injunction. And I think that the judge's primary consideration, which was always our primary consideration, was not to disperse that population where they face a separation from services and risk community spread of the coronavirus.
Okay, Counselor.
So we have not suffered any setbacks.
I want to cut to the chase here, because what I heard and what I heard from a few other people was that it is designated 122 camping spots, which leaves open the city to come down on other places people are now camping, like Highway 1 and 9. Is that what you understand? And What are you going to do about that?
Well, Chris, the thing of it is that the preliminary injunction that we got applied to campers in San Lorenzo Park. It was not a citywide injunction. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of homeless people in Santa Cruz and Santa Cruz County. This was a specifically focused action to stop them from breaking up the city's largest homeless encampment and dispersing people throughout the city where they would be put at heightened risk of harm. And we won on that, and we're now been able to get the city to agree and the judge to order that the encampment shall remain, except it will be simply moved to the benchlands. Anyone who's walking around talking about anything other than that is not presenting an accurate picture. I think the broader issue we face, Chris, is that there's a war on the homeless across this country, across the state. We've seen this violent destruction of the Echo Park encampment in Los Angeles. We see Santa Clara County talking about it. We stopped them in Sausalito, and we stopped them in Santa Cruz. So with our limited resources, we're getting in where we need to get in, where we can get in. But this is definitely a victory. We got this battle. The war continues.
Anthony Prince,
So,
you are the lawyer for the California Homeless Union representing the San Lorenzo Park encampment. The San Jose Mercury News had a cover story this past Sunday about how homeless campers, not just in Santa Cruz, but around the state, including Sausalito and Sacramento, are going to court and winning the right to sleep outside. It's now estimated, according to the Mercury News, that 114,000 people are sleeping outside in California. Do you think that figure is accurate? And why are homeless winning in court now and they didn't in the past?
Well, the thing is, Chris, is that I don't think that what's going on here is that we're winning the right to sleep outside. That's not a correct characterization. What we went to court to do was to stop the city from destroying an encampment and thus exposing people to a deadly virus. Okay? We are not about people sleeping outside. We are not about condoning or accepting as a normal state of affairs human beings living in inhumane conditions under tents, cardboard boxes, in substandard conditions. That is not acceptable to us. We're about ending homelessness and not just improving things a little bit for the homeless. Others may have that perspective. We don't.
Okay.
As far as what's made it, let me answer your question,
Sure.
Chris. Court is that this is the homeless organizing themselves. We're not advocates for the homeless. The homeless union, whether it's Salinas, Sausalito, El Centro, Santa Clara County, Sacramento, our leadership, our membership are drawn from the camps, the shelters, the streets. They're living in their RVs. They're living in the weekly rate motels. And I think that's what's starting to make a difference, that it's not just people who feel sorry for the homeless or even out of, with good intentions want to help them a little bit or defend their right to be in a car or defend their right to be in a park. Sure, we defend those as partial measures. We're forced into defending them. But that is not our objective. And our sole objective with this litigation, this round, was to stop the city from throwing people out into the street in the middle of the pandemic against the advice of the Centers for Disease Control, which since March of last year has said don't break up encampments. City of San Jose was breaking up Santa Cruz was breaking up an encampment, and we stopped it.
San Jose too is breaking up encampments. Hey, last question.
Sausalito, Los Angeles, they're all doing it, and that's why we're building a movement.
I want to let you go, but I have one more question. The parties come back in 30 days on April 27th. Said the judge today. What do you think will happen? Doesn't the city know it's getting beat up in court right now and will be looking for payback? Anthony Prince, these people hate to lose.
Well, I think all I can say about that, Chris, is that there is no way that the city is going to stop homelessness in the city of Santa Cruz by taking these police state measures, by trying to by enforcing TOLO or anything else they want to call it. You're going to see more homeless. We're seeing more homeless. And why? Because people cannot afford housing. They're losing their jobs. These are working class people. They're working. Some of them have been injured on the job. Some of them are on various forms of disability assistance. They built Santa Cruz. They built Santa Cruz County. These are not bums coming in from all over the country enjoy the great outdoors.
Okay, Counselor, I'm bumping up against the half hour.
All right.
How is your mom doing? I know you mentioned on at the court today that you're down visiting your mom for the first time. How's she doing?
Thanks for asking, Chris. She's doing well. She's 91. She's a member of the Auto Workers Union.
Yeah.
She's 91. She's a fighter like me. She's retired, but she's a fighter. My whole family. I'm very proud of them. Very proud of my mom. And I gave her a Homeless Union T-shirt and gave her the whole rundown, and it was wonderful. Thanks for asking.
I hope she's following. Good. I hope she's following what's going on down in Alabama with the Amazon workers. This is Chris Krohn. This is KSQD Santa Cruz 90.5. We'll be right back.
90.7.
90.7. Hey, this is KSQD 90.7 and KSQD.org. I'm going to go back to Abby Samuels, who we left off when Anthony Prince was on the phone. Abby Samuels, where does this battle go from here? And I'm talking about the right to sleep. Where do we go from here?
Yeah. So I really appreciate that. Anthony Prince did this lawsuit. That's great, but it's only during COVID, as he stated. Most of the people that are in San Lorenzo, and you can ask Cooper, for instance, most of the people there, my guess, it will not go to the new encampment. They have very, very strict rules. No, right now, no alcohol. No, in your house, you can drink alcohol. In your house, you can smoke weed. So now they're making no alcohol, no drugs, no smoking. I know Anthony Prince is trying to change that to get a smoking area, but I can guess that most of the people that are in San Lorenzo Park will not go to the managed camp.
But this is a public park, Abby Samuels. You or I could not drink or smoke in a public park.
That's right. But in there, as it was mentioned in the hearing today, it says you can't have designated areas in a park. But currently, they don't do that in any of the parks. And also, I want to note that it is selectively enforced. So if any of us see people smoking on the beach or in any of the parks, please take pictures and send it to Prince or any of the people on that are on this call. And we'll get it to Anthony Prince.
Okay,
so,
I want to go to Brent Adams of the Warning Center. Brent, are there more homeless people now than 10 years ago after the 2008 financial meltdown? And could you also briefly lay out your solution in confronting large numbers of homeless who now reside in Santa Cruz?
Yeah, it's really hard to get a handle on populations, especially now that because of the Martin vs. Boys that we're seeing, tents all over the place. So a lot of people would think definitely there's been a mushrooming of homelessness. But I took a tour of 40 cities, camped out in all of those cities in 2016.
Wow.
In the summertime. It took me 7 months. I went from San Diego all the way to Seattle. Now, I don't have a data set prior to that, but my personal experience is it is mushrooming us along the highways everywhere you go, up all the way up and down California, the waterways, the train tracks, the levees. And Santa Cruz is no different. We're seeing, the population that we know of in Santa Cruz has been pretty consistent. We get a lot of people coming through. Pandemic actually showed a lot of people kind of delivering them. Every time we get a big encampment like this, it becomes a strange attractor, especially if you got a couple of the addictive consumable sales tents, which we see, dominating some of these spaces, like the camp that's right behind my space. I want to acknowledge Anthony Prince and the Homeless Union and the activists because it was inappropriate for the city to try to remove that encampment because during the pandemic. But what we've been trying to do before that with a series of hot dog roasts, build community around the fact that, hey, we're in a park here. A lot of people have issues with it. The elderly were from across the street were claiming they didn't feel safe. All you have to do is walk. I don't need anybody to take my word from it. Just spend some time in that park and poke around. But what we have to do is reframe it. I mean, we've been talking about a war on homelessness. Of course, activists really love those terms, and even it's in the business of attorneys to engage in that war. But reframing it, it's really not a war for the people who sleep outside. It's life. And in fact, for us people who live in Santa Cruz, love Santa Cruz, not vilify it so much. We love it here. These are our people. It's home. These are our people. It's not a war. It's a community. It's a family. So we need to reframe the question, reframe the problem too. And what's true is it's become a war of protest. And I've been engaged in activism around protest for homelessness for almost a couple decades. And I had to walk away from it because that's all it was ever going to be. That's all it ever will be. Federal government says it wants to house everybody, but there's no housing funding. So all the money just goes into programs to put people behind desks to pretend, there's no housing in Santa Cruz. So let's stop that jargon.
Brent, could you talk about your agreement camp concept?
Yeah. So between housing first and the protest tendency that just pops up year after year after year, we need to. So what we were doing is after having an encampment in our backyard here, 25 people behind our building a couple of years ago, and now Felker Street, we had 100 people all for the last year, bringing out their trash, working with people, offering them storage, laundry, shower. We're open twice daily. We started talking about, everybody says out here you can't leave your backpack, or if you leave your tent, somebody will definitely come and steal all your stuff. All the bikes are stolen. It just goes on and on. It's not everybody. It's just a few bad apples. So we started posting these flyers, these signs everywhere. It says, down here, we don't steal from each other. We make sure that everybody has what they need. Let's change the culture, because if you don't change the culture, it'll always be the lowest common denominator. So we finally settled on a list of agreements in cooperation with our people in our backyard camp here. The list is, we understand that the city and nearby businesses and residents are our unintentional hosts, yet we wish to be good neighbors. We won't trespass on private property. We won't take anything from businesses or residents. No theft in this space. We won't steal from each other. No violence in this space. No open use of illegal substances. And we'll deal with our poop and our trash and our syringes appropriately.
Those are the agreements in the agreement camp that you're speaking of, right?
So at the Battle of the Duck Pond, that's when the police came and tried to shut that encampment down so inappropriately at that time. On that day, we had already planned to whisk several people who had been bombarded and felt so unsafe. So we took several people out into the Harvey West camp that we had established 2 months earlier when they closed the Tannery Backside River Camp and the Felker Camp Paradise Camp. We already had 20 people out there. We brought a half dozen more. And then finally now we've got 30 to 40 people out there months and months later without a single complaint, because there are no neighbor complaints. There are no calls for police, because everyone there has flipped the script to being empowered and to keeping each other safe. And so the city has honored that with 3 porta potties, a dumpster, and also the weekly shower trailer.
How many campers are out there right now, Brent Adams?
I think we got about 40 and growing, because the word is out there that that's the safe, tranquil place to be. It's out in the Friendship Gardens. So we could have easily used that term, but we didn't want to kind of sully the Friendship Gardens concept with the homeless camp. We really want the Harvey West Agreement Camp to be a concept. And then also by extension, our Felker area camp, there's Hell's Trail. That's one thing. It's hard to turn a pre-existing space where people are camping into an agreement camp after the fact. So it's really got to get under the thing as you're building it. So they moved everybody out of the Camp Paradise, if you know where that is, the Upper East Levee. And now that people are moving back, we're installing a fence, and everybody who goes back there are agreeing to these basics. And we've really transformed the Felker cul-de-sac area.
Okay, I want to bring Joy Schendeldecker back into the conversation. She's an artist and community organizer, yes. And she also works on mutual aid, as does Brent Adams and everybody else really on this call. 2 questions for Joy. Sanitation for the people, what is that? And the other question is, what gives you hope in solving the issue of the unhoused community?
Okay. Sanitation for the People is, it's a mutual aid group that we started. It's sort of a spin-off from Love Boat, or a sister project. We see when we give, right? And as we do that, we see that people have a need to also have waste management. right? And that wasn't really happening for months and months. Interestingly, the city developed their own program kind of as we were noticing that this need was there, to put wheelie bins for curbside service, which is like unheard of in unhoused communities, because of the way that enterprise funds and general funds work with waste management services. But I commend the city for coming up with that solution and providing regular service to people there. But they people still need a little help to navigate the system. There's, abandoned sites happen because, say, a storm comes through and blows tents down and somebody moves on, and then the site, gets wet and nobody wants to clean it up because it's not theirs or because they're afraid they'll be accused of stealing. So we come in, we already have a relationship with people, and we ask the neighbors around, well, first of all, how are you and what do you need? And would you like our help with this? Is this an abandoned site? And so we work in partnership with them to identify what people need help cleaning up. We bring garbage bags, and sometimes we have tools, and we work together. So that's
get in touch. How can people get in touch with you?
They can find us on Facebook by searching Sanitation for the People. There's a public page that people can like. There's a private page if people want to be more involved in organizing behind the scenes or coming out on cleanups. People can also email me directly at sanitationforthepeople@gmail.com. And there's an Instagram page. We're still a pretty new group and figuring out how to manage, our public presence and how to bring people into the fold. I've been a little careful because there's a long history of vigilante cleanups in Santa Cruz, and there's also been a long history of weaponizing images of garbage and needles against people on social media. Most police interactions with homeless camps seem to happen because members of the public, the housed community, call and complain and report that there's some kind of nuisance condition, often what people perceive as garbage.
It sounds like you're wresting this away from the city and getting it and empowering other people in the community to do something. And that sounds like what several of you on this call are doing. Abby Samuels, could you respond? Getting back to the park situation, did you get a chance to watch the court hearing today? Yes. So at one point, Cassie Bronson, who is the assistant city attorney for the city of Santa Cruz, said that, quote, "It's the city's park," referring to why people could not sleep there. What do you think she meant, and is that an affront to homeless people?
Yes, it's definitely an affront to homeless people because the city consists of people that are housed and people that are unhoused. So the city's park is for everyone. Whether you pay a lot of money to live in a house, a lot of the people, that was stated before, are there for several reasons that don't have shelter. I watched the whole hearing, and that was interesting that she said that.
I thought so too, but I did think there was 2 hearings ago where the city was like really had their, she didn't like the judge didn't seem to like their attitude at all, and last time they kind of like bowed their heads a little bit and realized they were going to lose, and they just want to control the conversation. So now we're going to move the camp to the benchlands. Say where the benchlands is, and how do you think the move will affect the current campers, of which are probably 150?
I think most of the people won't go to the camp.
Where is the benchlands?
Oh, it's the benchlands is the part. If you are at San Lorenzo Park, the benchlands is the area near the river that if you go down to what they call, I guess, the bench, but if you go down you're on top of the hill when you're in San Lorenzo Park. And if you go a little down the hill, right near the river, then you are in the benchlands. And it was very interesting to hear that they wanted to clear. They said in the courtroom that, oh yeah, I got a text and there's 20 people there on the benchlands already. And we need to clear those 20 people to put up a small encampment. Those benchlands, you could probably have all of our houseless community on the benchlands. It goes on for blocks, and they need to clear out these 20 people. But actually that number of 20 is wrong, because we had one of our people in one of the many orgs that I'm in go down and check the benchlands, and there's more like 40 or 50 people there. And so we're really concerned that people will be dispersed, that HBHB, which is the service providers that provide health, consists of a lot of nurses that will go down there and provide all sorts of health, medical help for the people there. Now they're going to be dispersed and they won't be able to get their help. And if people need a second shot for the virus, they won't get the second shot, and so on. So I am.
Let's gotta stop you there for a second. This is KSQD 90.7, KSQD.org. My name's Chris Crone, and this is Talk of the Bay, and we are talking about housing and homeless folks in Santa Cruz. Keith McHenry was off the line, and Cooper D'Angelo both. We lost them both for a while, and now I hear you're back. Are you back, Keith McHenry?
Yeah, well, we're back. We didn't realize the show was still going, and we were busy with
That's right.
the meal.
You're serving people.
So anyway.
You're serving people. I'll let you go, but the judge said today.
No, we're fine. We just didn't know. I mean, you got to flow with the scene out here. And it's a beautiful, magical situation. So
describe to us what you're seeing right now. What are you seeing?
Well, right now it's just the end of the meal, and we're just hanging out. We packed up all the serving equipment.
Where are you?
We're at Laurel and Front Street. So there's like a little bivouac that Portuguese Tony's got. There's a new person that just moved into the streets, and he's living in a little tent over here. And we got another little tent, and we got one of our artist friends. We got an art project behind the dumpster. So and then a bunch of people from San Lorenzo Park are hanging out. So it's a nice scene, a very nice scene. But we are done with the meal for the day. Let
me ask you, Keith. The judge said today in court. I think you heard the what happened in court today, right? You were on that.
Yeah, I was glued to that whole thing.
Okay, so
the judge the union do.
So the judge said, "quote the city of Santa Cruz has gone to extraordinary lengths to house its unsheltered population during the pandemic." You agree or disagree?
I completely disagree. It's very interesting that they would present it that way, and that sadly the judge agreed with that. But I think that there's this huge blind spot, and makes these kind of cases difficult. Is a lot of people have an imaginary idea of what living on the streets is, and that's how they make their decisions. But they don't know any different because they are not out on the streets.
Is Cooper D'Angelo still with you? The emergency room.
She's right here. I'll put her on.
Cooper, you're still with us. Thank you for coming back. Hey, they won in court today. How does that feel, being a person who's represented in court and your interests are represented, and the judge is ruling in your favor and staying in the camp in San Lorenzo Park?
Right. Well, and I think that the real situation isn't moving people to the riverbed, which the benchlands is just river overflow in the flood zone. So if they're suggesting and ordering the people to move into a known flood zone, and flood season is springtime and it's coming up. And I've seen that benchland, which is riverbed, under 3.5 feet of rushing water. So I would encourage people to stand firm and stay in their spots up top at the San Lorenzo Park, and to not move down to the flood zone of the riverbed. That is not a safe request to have the people be put in danger. And I think the only real safe place is to move the people into the paradox.
There you go. Into the paradox.
Right, where it's actual safety.
Hey, does anybody on the line know about the stimulus checks? And are homeless people, I assume they are eligible. How are they getting the $1,400 stimulus checks from the pandemic response of the Biden administration? Anybody know?
Well, I do know someone who is working with someone to get it.
Abby Samuels, how are they doing that?
Well, you have to either have help with going online to fill out some form. You can go over to the Encompass and talk to Chris Youngren over at San Lorenzo Park, and she can help people with that. And then, hopefully you have a mailing address at Coral Street, and then it should go there unless you have a bank, which most people don't have a bank account, of course.
Brent Adams, Brent Adams, go ahead. Is that you?
Yeah, as we know, this is the third round, right? And so what we've seen is there was a push, activists helping people get their stimulus checks. Many of our clients received them, and also lots of back unemployment pay. We saw people being able to get that money and get into cars and vans, buy new tents, survival gear. Many people got off the street completely with that little leg up. So the people who had already access prior to those checks are already in line. And for the rest, we do need, that's an activist pursuit. Activism in Santa Cruz is often thought to be protest activism. We want to see proactive activism where we help people with the basic needs that they have.
There's many roads to Rome, I'll have to say, Brent. And I think you're pursuing one of them, and I think some other activists are pursuing others. Hey, we only have time for 30-second comments, and I'm going to start with final comments, wrap it up. Where do we go from here? What is, how are we going to end homelessness? Is that even a possibility, a thought, a realistic mission? I'm going to start with Joy Schendeldecker.
Hi, that's a big question.
30 seconds.
Yeah. I guess right now I'm just focused on, because we're not going to end homelessness anytime soon, unfortunately. I think they could buy hotels, house people in, much more interesting ways. But other than that, we need to do the best we can for people where they are. We find people where they are, and we help them get the services that they need, including sanitation, because they have basic human rights. And we as housed community members, we need to recognize that and let them know that. That's part of our commitment.
Okay, thank you. Cooper D'Angelo, how long do you expect to live in San Lorenzo Park?
I don't know. We just do it one day at a time.
And where will you go if you have to leave?
Well, like I said, we just do it one day at a time, and we see what the next things that unfold. I think a big part of the homeless population that they're being used in the system, and they have all these court dates and all these extended this and that for baloney tickets, and they're being used.
Yeah,
and when you have, so I think that's what we need to end. Is the slavery and the people being used by the system, and they want to keep them in tents.
I'm going to go to Brent Adams. 30-second comment. Where do we go from here, Brent?
Yeah, we're stuck in this false dichotomy between housing first and the protest, ever protesting. We're a visionary community, and it's time to hold a vision moving forward. Just look at the tech geniuses of Silicon Valley. A vision forward. So we can build some collective will towards action, and that'll be a basic shelter array, including things like transitional encampments, the traditional shelter model. We're not going to end homelessness, but what we're going to do is improve things and give everybody clean, safe, dignifying shelter of some kind immediately, and let's stop these shenanigans.
Okay, thank you. Keith McHenry, where do we go from here?
Well, the solution to homelessness is a home for everybody, and there's definitely enough empty units and to house everybody safely with their own restroom and their own kitchen. And that should happen. That's our demand. And that's what the people in the union are talking about. That's what the people living at San Lorenzo Park are talking about. They're talking about there's no reason they're supposed to be living on the streets in the richest country in the world, in one of the richest counties in the world, where the richest people in the world live nearby. This is outrageous, and it should.
Okay, Abby Samuels, you get the last word.
I agree. Ditto what Keith just said. There are many, and also what you said, Chris. There are many roads to Rome. There are many solutions, but there is a way to house everyone, but there's no political will. So we have to change that. The legal way is only one way. We have to change the people's narratives of how they view our people that are unhoused, because a lot of people don't understand what it's like to live out there and don't understand people's circumstances. So
we got to leave it there.
We can do.
We have to leave it there. We're going to go out with Gil Scott-Heron. And I want to thank Brent Adams of the Warming Center, Abby Samuels, activist, Keith McHenry of Food Not Bombs, Joy Schendeldecker, artist and DSA member, and who am I leaving out? Cooper D'Angelo. Thank you all. Really appreciate it. Thanks to Howard Feldstein for our engineer. And yes, Gil Scott-Heron singing The Revolution will not be televised, and it won't be, only if you make it happen and go out there and get involved. And that's what this show's about. This is Chris Crone of the Santa Cruz Political Report, and this has been Talk of the Bay. You can hear this show again if you go to our archives, ksqd.org, or tune in on Thursday at 6 a.m.
What you are experiencing is